When we reach a certain age, we often dream of the freedom that comes with time freedom to do what we want, go where we please, and visit whoever we choose. But as we grow older, we start to learn that some visits, no matter how well-intentioned, can lead us down the wrong path. In this speech, I want to share with you the 4 types of people whose homes we should avoid visiting because the price of those visits might be higher than we expect. As we journey through life, we often encounter people who drain our energy in ways we don't even realize until we're left feeling completely exhausted. These are the individuals who, over time, suck the vitality out of you, leaving you with nothing but an empty shell. The first type of person we need to avoid as we grow older is the drainer of energy. The ones who have this uncanny ability to make you feel emotionally drained. Every time you spend time with them, when you first meet them, you might not notice it. After all, they're friendly, maybe even charming at first. But over time, the pattern becomes clear. Every conversation with them leaves you feeling heavy. They have this way of constantly complaining about everything work. Family, health, finances, nothing is ever good enough. They somehow manage to find the negative in every situation. And even the most optimistic person can't help but feel weighed down by their constant pessimism. Imagine visiting their home. You sit there listening to endless rants, watching them spiral into more and more negativity. And the worst part is, they seem completely oblivious to the toll it's taking on you. They don't just talk about their problems. They make you feel responsible for solving them. You end up trying to offer advice or support, but it's like throwing a lifeline to someone who refuses to grab it. After a while, you start dreading your visits. What was once an opportunity for connection now feels like a career drain. It's exhausting. You begin to notice that you've lost your own sense of joy after spending time with them. Their negativity becomes infectious, and before you know it, you're carrying their burdens with you, weighing you down wherever you go. That's the thing about energy drainers, they don't just take your time. They take your spirit. It's important to recognize when you're spending time with someone whose presence doesn't uplift you. If you don't protect your energy, these people will continue to drain you, leaving you with less and less to give to others who genuinely need your support. As you grow older, you need to be selective about who you spend your time with. The drainer of energy is someone you should avoid visiting. On the other hand, there's another type of person whose home is best avoided. The hoarder of past grudges. These people seem to have an endless supply of bitterness that they've been holding on to for years. Have you ever visited someone's house and instantly felt like you've stepped into a time warp? The moment you walk through the door, it's as if nothing has changed. The past is alive and well, hanging in the air like a thick fog. And no matter how much time has passed, they still haven't let go of those old grudges. They cling to the unresolved conflicts like a badge of honor. Every conversation with them becomes a rehash of old arguments, things you weren't even involved in, but now you are, simply because you happen to be there. They bring up names, situations, and stories that have no bearing on the present, but they use them as a way to validate their ongoing bitterness. It's as if they're waiting for you to join their crusade of resentment, dragging you down with them. You can try to steer the conversation towards something more positive, but it's futile. The wounds of the past are too deep, and they're not ready to move on. Every visit to their home feels like an emotional time capsule, and it's hard not to get sucked into their narrative of hurt and blame. You start to realize that no matter how much time has passed, they can't seem to let go of the past. They've become so focused on the wrongs done to them. They can't see how they've been holding themselves back. It's painful to watch. They've built an entire identity around their grievances, and it becomes clear that they're not interested in healing. Instead, they want to keep those old wounds fresh, because doing so allows them to remain in control of their own victimhood. It's a hard truth to face, but spending time with people who refuse to move on from the past can hold you back as well. Their bitterness can infect your own mindset, making you question your own experiences, even the ones that have nothing to do with them. It's a dangerous place to be, constantly stuck in the past. And being in their home is like living in a world where nothing ever changes. It's all about what happened yesterday, rather than focusing on what you can do today. These people become trapped in a cycle of resentment, and no matter how much you care about them, there's little you can do to help them if they're not willing to release their grudges. When you're older, you start to realize that your time and mental space are precious. You don't have the luxury to dwell on things that don't serve you or keep revisiting old wounds. That's why, as hard as it might be, you need to recognize when someone is hoarding the past and learn to avoid being sucked into their world of grudges. If you want to live a life full of growth, peace, and forward momentum, you need to create space for people who are focused on the present and future, not those who are stuck in a past that's already gone. So next time you're Tay, as we grow older, we often find ourselves surrounded by people who need more than just company. They need constant reassurance, validation, and emotional support. These are the people who can't seem to stand on their own 2 feet for too long. And the problem isn't necessarily that they don't want to be independent, but that they've never learned how to be. The third type of person we should avoid visiting is the clinger. These are the individuals who seem to latch on to others for emotional survival. At first, their neediness might seem innocent, but as time goes on, you realize just how exhausting it is to be around them. They seem to always need something from you, whether it's advice, comfort, or simply someone to talk to. While we all need emotional support at times, the clinger is different. They need more than what is healthy, more than what is sustainable. They rely on others to fill emotional voids that they've never learned to fill themselves. It's a draining cycle. Each time you visit them, they pour out their problems, their insecurities, and their anxieties, expecting you to be the solution. And the worst part is, they don't just seek help, they expect you to solve it all. When you visit a clinger, you don't just have to listen. You have to fix things. They may talk about their struggles, their fears, and their issues, but no matter how much advice you give, they never seem to take it. It's as if they're not really looking for solutions, they're looking for validation. They want you to tell them they're right, they're worthy, that they're deserving of the things they can't seem to achieve on their own. It's a never-ending loop of emotional dependency that can wear you down. Over time, you start to feel the weight of their emotional needs on your shoulders, and the visits become less about mutual connection and more about them pulling at your own emotional reserves. You begin to feel that every time you give, you're left with less of yourself. The clinger's dependence can make you feel trapped in a cycle where you're not just offering support, but you're doing the heavy lifting, carrying the emotional load on their behalf. It's hard to break free from this dynamic because at the heart of it, you care about them and you don't want to leave them to fend for themselves. But if you keep visiting them, if you keep allowing them to lean on you for everything, you'll find yourself sinking along with them. Now, on the other side of the emotional spectrum, there's the perpetual victim, someone who sees themselves as the center of the universe's injustices. They are the ones who, no matter what happens, somehow end up being the one hurt, the one wronged, and the one who suffers. Every conversation with them turns into a recounting of how life has been unfair to them, how things have never gone their way, and how every misfortune in their life is a reflection of some greater injustice. It's as if the world has conspired against them, and they are. The problem with these individuals is that their suffering has become their identity. They don't see themselves as capable of change, and in fact, they don't want to. Being a victim gives them a certain power. It excuses them from taking responsibility for their own choices. It makes them feel justified in their anger, and it creates a narrative that places the blame for everything wrong in their life squarely on others. When you visit their home, you become a part of that story. You're not visiting to offer support or help. You're visiting to become the sounding board for their grievances, the mirror that reflects their pain, and the one who listens as they lament their fate. But no matter how much you listen, no matter how much you empathize, they're never going to change. Their suffering is too ingrained in who they are, and they're not ready to let go of the narrative that being a victim is the only way they can exist. The issue with visiting the perpetual victim is that it makes you question everything. You find yourself sympathizing with them, but also starting to wonder if they're ever going to take action to improve their lives, or if they'll remain trapped in a cycle of complaining, blaming, and self-pity. You might want to offer them advice or solutions, but they're never interested in real change. They want to be heard, but they don't want to take the steps necessary to move forward. The more time you spend with them, the more you realize that their world is limited to their victimhood. It's like a house built on a foundation of blame, and the walls are lined with excuses. And while you might feel sorry for them, you also start to feel a sense of helplessness. No matter how much you care, you can't fix their life for them. And ultimately, these visits leave you feeling powerless, as if all you're doing is feeding into their cycle of suffering, without any hope of real change. As you grow older, the value of your time becomes clearer, and you begin to recognize the importance of surrounding yourself with people who take responsibility for their own lives and emotional well-being. Spending time with clingy, emotionally dependent individuals or perpetual victims can drain your energy and leave you questioning your own sense of agency. It's essential to realize that while you can support people, you cannot carry them forever. You need to guard your emotional reserves and protect yourself from being pulled into toxic cycles that prevent both you and others from growing. As we continue to navigate through life, there's one more group of people that can have a profoundly negative impact on your sense of self. The ones who are constantly competing with you. This type of individual can come in many forms. At first, their actions might seem like harmless, friendly banter. But over time, you begin to realize that no matter what you achieve, no matter how much you grow, they seem to feel threatened. Everything you do becomes a reflection of their own insecurity. It's as if they're constantly in a race, trying to prove that they're better than you in every aspect of life. Every conversation becomes a competition to see who's been more successful, who's had the better experiences, or who's faced more challenges. They always seem to be one step ahead, one-upping you at every turn, even if it means twisting the truth or exaggerating their accomplishments. Visiting their home can feel like walking into an arena, where the only thing that matters is who comes out on top. The competition is relentless. Even the simplest conversation becomes a scorecard for who's winning. You start to feel like you're being sized up, measured, and judged. They seem to thrive on comparison, using it as a way to boost their own self-esteem. What's frustrating is that their need to compete isn't born out of genuine admiration or healthy ambition. It's driven by a deep-seated insecurity. They are threatened by your success, and instead of celebrating it, they try to overshadow it, making it about their own achievements. You find yourself being constantly pushed to one side, as if your life isn't enough on its own merit. You're left feeling like your accomplishments don't truly matter, unless they've been validated by the competition. This type of energy-sucking dynamic can be incredibly draining. It's exhausting trying to keep up with someone who's always looking for ways to make themselves look superior. After a while, you begin to realize that no matter how much you achieve, they'll always find a way to diminish it. You start questioning your own worth, wondering if you'll ever be able to escape the endless comparison. And then there are those who, on the other side of things, live in constant denial of reality. They're the ones who can't face the truth, who would rather live in a fantasy world than confront the challenges that come with being honest with themselves. They build their lives on a fragile foundation of self-deception, and they expect you to play along with their delusion. These are the people who seem to have an answer for everything. But when it comes down to it, none of it holds up to scrutiny. They build elaborate stories about their successes, their relationships, or their ability stories that are so far removed from reality that you can't help but feel uncomfortable. When you visit them, you're entering a world where nothing is as it seems. It's like stepping into a house of mirrors, where the truth is distorted and the only thing that matters is maintaining the illusion. They'll tell you that everything is going perfectly in their life. But beneath the surface, you can feel the cracks. The constant need to uphold this facade becomes overwhelming, and it's impossible not to feel the tension beneath their words. At first, you might try to offer support, offering solutions to their problems, or encouraging them to confront what's really going on. But instead of facing the truth, they deflect, deny, and make excuses. They create scenarios in which they are always in the right, never taking responsibility for their own mistakes. It's as if they've constructed a bubble around themselves to shield them from the reality of life's challenges. And while that might seem harmless at first, over time, you realize that their avoidance of the truth is an act of self-sabotage. It becomes exhausting trying to maintain the illusion for them. You start to feel like you're participating in a lie, offering words of encouragement when deep down, they're not ready to face the real issues in their life. Their inability to confront reality eventually leads to frustration, both for you and for them. It's like watching someone who's trapped in their own fantasy, unable to move forward because they refuse to acknowledge what's really going on. The more you interact with them, the more you find yourself questioning the truth of your own experiences. You might even begin to feel like you're living in a world of half-truths, unsure of what's real and what's just part of their fabricated narrative. This denial of reality is incredibly damaging, not just for the person living in it, but for those around them. It's hard to maintain a meaningful relationship with someone who refuses to see things for what they are. The dynamic becomes one of constant avoidance, where the real issues are never addressed, and the only thing that's discussed is the fantasy they've created. This is a dangerous place to be because eventually, the gap between reality and illusion becomes so wide that there's no way back. And as much as you care about them, you can only help someone who's willing to face the truth. If they continue to deny it, there's nothing you can do to save them from themselves. Eventually, you'll have to walk away from this cycle of self-deception, because the longer you stay, the more you risk losing touch with your own reality. Both the constant competitor and the person living in denial represent relationships that can leave you feeling drained, confused, and disconnected. The competitors need to always prove themselves superior, and the person who refuses to acknowledge the truth. Both create a toxic environment that can prevent any meaningful growth. As you grow older, you begin to realize the importance of authenticity and self-awareness in your relationships. People who are constantly comparing themselves to you, or who are lost in their own fantasy worlds, can never offer you the genuine connection and support that you deserve. These types of individuals can drain you emotionally, causing you to question your own worth and your own reality. Ultimately, the key to living a fulfilling life is to surround yourself with people who are secure in themselves, who celebrate your achievements, and who are willing to face the truth together, no matter how difficult it may be.